Well, I'm Russ Durstein with Concerned Veterans for America. This is another congressional conversation. Thank you, Congressman Ciscomani.
Absolutely.
Mind, I've heard you've got a fascinating story about how you came to be a citizen here, how
Sure.
you came to serve. I'd like to start with that because we have a lot of our naturalized citizens go that route through military service.
That's right.
So there's a ton that have that story. So I'd love to hear yours.
Well, I talk a lot about the American dream, and I really do believe that the American dream is even possible because of the men and women that have defended this nation, fought for our nation. So you can't talk about the American dream without honoring and thanking the veterans that made that dream possible for so many of us, not only immigrants, but everyone that is having a shot at that American dream. My story is, unique in some ways, but also in other ways, millions of people share that story. Even within Arizona, there's a lot of people that have this kind of background. I was born in Mexico. Okay. I came over to the U.S. when I was 11 years old.
11, okay.
Yeah, with my family, so my parents and my two younger sisters. 11 years old, grew up in Tucson, went to public schools in the area. Then Pima Community College, the University of Arizona, and then I did an internship here in Washington, D.C. along the way, where I met my wife, actually. But I tell you that because it wasn't until 2006 that I was able to become a U.S. citizen. Okay. So it took my family over 14 years just about that to be able to achieve that amazing dream of becoming a U.S. citizen. I always say that was the proudest day of my life, maybe after the birth of my kids, and since I have 6 kids, then that becomes the 7th proudest day of my life, right? But, so I became a citizen in 2006 as an adult in my 20s. And then 16 years later, I get elected to the United States Congress. So, I mean, where else in the world can that happen, right? Nowhere else. And that's what my dad said. He said, we come to the country. He says, where else in the world could we have our story? He says, we come to the country, immerse in the culture, learn English, go through the long process of becoming U.S. citizens. My dad said, I drive a bus my whole life. Yeah. He's a bus driver. He said, and now my son has a shot at becoming a member of the United States Congress. This is right before I ran for office. He says, where else in the world could we have this? And the answer is nowhere else. Yeah. That's why I believe in the American dream so fervently. And for my 6 kids to have a shot at it and everybody else that wants at it, not only obviously immigrants, but people that have traced their lineage back to the Mayflower even, everyone has had an opportunity in this country that they wouldn't have had anywhere else in the world. And our veterans are the primary people to thank for that.
Congressman, thank you for that very much. Congressman Ciscomani, I'd like to talk a little bit about your district. Yeah. You have 75,000 veterans in your district. That's huge. You have a couple Army bases. I know you have Davis Monthan. I was Air Force myself. And so the Boneyard.
Thanks for your service.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and you're welcome. High praise from you about our country's greatness and the debt that's owed to our veterans for that. But I was just curious how having that many veterans in your district, how does that impact your role as House Veterans Affairs Committee member? How does that impact you there?
Well, it totally impacts it. This is a lens from which I see a lot of what we do here. You're right, over 70,000 veterans in our district, the 9th largest veteran population among congressional districts in the nation. Because we also have some military bases and installations in our district. Air Force with DM Air Force Base in Tucson, then we have the Fort Huachuca Army over in Sierra Vista. That community, the impact that the installation and the base have in the community is beyond obviously just the national security piece and the intelligence and cybersecurity that they both offer combined, but it's the economic impact that it has in the region as well. And then the fact that so many retire and stay within the region, so we have veterans living amongst us that was their last deployment, or they got to experience the bases when they were in town and then they wanted to come back to that region, which I don't blame them for that. So you have all these veterans also living there and within their families that they are part of the community as well. Some live on base, but many others do not. So veterans the whole group is an amazing asset to the community. They make any region better, any area better, and we want more veterans to be within within Southern Arizona for sure. So in my mind, when I'm looking at veteran affairs, I'm looking at how to make our veterans' lives better, and also how to attract more veterans to our region, how to make sure that they feel comfortable and taken care of within our state. And the state of Arizona has done a really good job at attracting veterans in different ways, not taxing their pensions and those kind of things that I was able to be a part of at the state level when I was with Governor Ducey. So from the state level, I was able to work on veteran affairs and issues, and now here in Congress, as a member of both the Veteran Affairs Committee but also the Appropriations Committee, I'm making sure that our veterans are well taken care of.
That is a great story, and as you know, a lot of retirees or even veterans that are wounded in combat need a lot of health care. The VA healthcare system was set up to do that over a century ago. There's obviously been some issues, and one of the most famous issues happened just north of you in Phoenix in 2014. The VA wait time scandal broke. CVA was one of the only organizations that was beating the drum about VA healthcare choice, and then that scandal exploded. We pointed at it quite a bit, and we started Vets on the Hill about that time. And so we've come up every year talking to members of Congress. We cite that incident and just how big that bureaucracy has gotten, and how many veterans either got sick or died because they weren't being seen in a timely manner. What kind of lessons does your committee and have you taken from that scandal, and where have we gone since then?
Well, that's a great question, and that was, of course, something that happened just about 10 years ago. You're right. It's a 10-year anniversary of that scandal. Now, it hadn't been happening only that year. Obviously, this is something that had been happening for a while. And anytime that I see our veterans not get the best, the best of the best, it is disappointing at best, infuriating as well, because these are the men and women that lay their life on the line. I visited the VA hospital during Veterans Day weekend over in Southern Arizona, in the Tucson location, and I just went to go see the veterans that were getting better. Some were coming back for other illnesses and so on. My mentor and my second father figure was my pastor, Arnoldo Gutierrez, who was an Air Force veteran, and he got very sick in 2017 and used the VA services. That was my first exposure in visiting the VA center over and over again, the VA hospital, to visit him. He unfortunately passed away in Thanksgiving weekend. Cancer ate him up really quickly. And but that was my first exposure to that on an almost family basis, you know. So I got to see how much it had been improved to that point, and even more so now. Now, when you look back at 2014 and what that taught us, to your question, is the power and the importance of congressional oversight on our agencies. We also saw the downside of having such large bureaucracies with little accountability, and also once we empowered the top leadership and the secretary to be able to make hiring and firing decisions a lot quicker and easier on those that are not serving our veterans in the best way, I think that was another positive step in the right direction. But the oversight is absolutely necessary. This is when I look at our VA committee, you see a lot of bipartisanship happening, because of taking care of our veterans should not be political, should not be partisan. So when we talk about accountability and looking into this and making sure the bureaucracy is not in the way of our veterans' well-being, it's something that should have the support of both sides, and encourage that I've seen that in the Veteran Affairs Committee, when you don't see that in a lot of places in Congress right now.
One nice thing about veteran issues is they're not red or blue; they tend to be green.
Tend to be green.
So that's,
yes,
that is one heartwarming thing about veterans issues up here on the Hill. One of the things that we did notice, obviously, that came out of the 2014 scandal was the introduction of choice. That year, the first VA choice bill was signed by President Obama. Later on, we ended up having the VA Accountability Act in 2017, and then in 2018, the Mission Act, and community care was introduced for the first time. And veterans, it was very popular when it first took off, and veterans were using it in large numbers, and wait times were cut down, travel distances. Like where I live in West Texas, we'll send veterans as far as 8 hours away on it, which is just incredible. And so community service, community care has been something that's really positively impacted veteran health care. But recently, it was discovered that Border Patrol, ICE and Border Patrol had an agreement, and they were taking illegal aliens that were coming across the border, unauthorized migrants, and taking them to veteran community care. And so instead of veterans getting community care, non-citizens were getting community care. What can Congress do to ensure that the VA keeps its resources focused on the core mission, which is, of course, serving our veterans?
Well, they need to do that, and that's when the accountability comes in. Those resources are there for our veterans. When they were allocated, when they were appropriated, when they were applied, when those community health centers and facilities were built, that was for our veterans, and that's where they need to stay. And again, it's the whole notion of, where do our veterans rank in our priority list? I think a lot of people thank them and talk about this, but when the rubber hits the road, where are our resources going? Is our legislation going? Where is the oversight going? What is being prioritized here? And our veterans need to have that priority place within our society overall. But that needs to be shown also on the resources and the tangible things that we can see. Over in Sierra Vista, in the district we're talking about in Cochise County, there was a center that was closing, and people would have to drive, veterans would have to drive to Tucson, which is an hour and a half, 2 hours away, not as the 8 hours that you mentioned over in West Texas. Nevertheless, it's an inconvenience they shouldn't be having. It's something that, especially for a community with so many veterans and such a large military presence, is that they should have that. So we were able to advocate for something, and there's an additional center being open at the same time that this one was closing, ended up switching a location more than anything. So I'm always going to be advocating for our veterans to have the quickest and the fastest ease to be able to access the benefits that they were willing to, that they were willing to die for our country, so they should have these benefits for themselves. One of the things that I've done too to help me through this, because I'm not a veteran myself, and I need to understand these issues at a much deeper level and educate myself in them. I'm not going to assume I know it all. So I want to become a smarter, a better member of Congress, is that I established a Veterans Council. So in this council, didn't even look at the party registration of the people. I just went out and people that I knew that had the respect of the community, that were also part of other groups that could be a voice for this council. And I tell them in the council, I said, I want you to wear all the hats that you wear in the community at this table, because you represent so many other groups and veterans that I want to hear from that. So I have 18 members in this council right now that are represent all 5 counties, from all 5 counties. And they have some that are enlisted Marines that served for 5 years, all the way up to generals that served for over 30 years. So I have it all. The difference between retiring and separating from the military, all these things that are keys for us to be able to find out. So we had the VA actually come in and present to us last week, and Chairman Boss's team also was there. So this council helps guide me to make the best decisions, inform me on what's happening, and there are ears and eyes out in the community to help bring some of this information back to me, so that I can become, again, a smarter and better member of Congress on how to serve our veterans. So this council has been essential for what I've been able to do.
That sounds outstanding, and I think the ability to have ears in many different aspects of the veteran lives and have them give you feedback, that's a terrific idea. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, so they're separated in that we've got workforce development, we have re-entry into, after retiring, and then entering civilian life. So we've got different committees that how do we make all this better? And one new one that we just established, thanks to a couple of people that we added to the council, is veterans family benefits. Once the veteran passes away, what happens to their spouse and those benefits? And even within, when they're both alive, the everything that the spouse has gone through as well, we need to be taking care of the spouses also. So areas that you may not always hear about, but we're trying to tackle it all.
I wanted to expand a little bit more on VA choice
Yeah.
a little bit. Obviously, there's excellent VA healthcare. Some facilities work extremely well, some don't. But unfortunately, for a lot of veterans, not being able to exercise their choice, if they're stuck in a situation that's not working well. And if you think about when a person goes to serve, we don't pay them much.
Yeah.
And so they have their income's pretty low, but we promise them 3 things if you serve. 1 will help you with your education with the GI Bill. 2 will help you with the VA loan, when you get out and want to purchase a house. And the third thing we do is we're going to take care of your healthcare needs should you get wounded or sick or injured in the line of duty. Two of those components are heavily choice-based. You can take your GI Bill and shop any university you want to go to. You can take your VA loan as long as you qualify. You can buy the house that you're looking for. But the third one really depends on a government bureaucracy. And we know that bureaucracy does not always make the best customer service.
No.
So one of the things that we're hoping for is expanded VA care choice throughout the entire system. One of the things that we're looking at is the vet technology education program that you've helped support.
Yeah.
And when it comes to healthcare through veterans who have to wade through all that red tape, do you see that? How do you see that bill, and how do you support veterans having full choice when that's possible?
Well, they need to have that full choice. You're absolutely right on the three aspects of this, and I would dare to say that from the three benefits that they get, probably the one where they have the least choice right now is the most important one for them and for their families. So we need to make sure that they have that. We've done several efforts. We mentioned Vet Tech, that's one, but we've also done other ones that regarding medical services that they can get across state lines, physicians being able to also practice across state lines to our veterans, so both veterans being able to go to other states and also getting services from other states in their home state to make sure that they can get the care and the choices that they want to receive. So that's absolutely necessary, and I think there's enough support on this now. Predicting what happens in Congress here and how things go, I've learned quickly in my first year that that's a bad business to be in. Nevertheless, I've seen enough of this, and the Vet Tech bill passed with wide bipartisan support from the House floor, and that of course was to make sure that they have the proper training once they enter into civilian life, and they have the proper training to pursue different careers. But I think anything that expands a choice for our veterans, and that can give them all the tools they need for the quality of life that they want to have outside the military is essential. And that goes all the way to mental health. Yes. It goes over to homelessness. It goes over to all these issues that may not be prevalent when they're in service, but they get exacerbated once they leave active duty. And then you discover a lot of these other things they could be dealing with. So we need to be right there for them like they were for us.
Thank you for being such a champion for choice and making sure veterans have as many options as they can. Last, I'd like to ask you a little bit. I know that you have a lot of constituents in your district. You have a lot of veterans that need help with different things. Could you maybe share a little bit on how they can contact your office?
Sure.
How constituent services work in your district? Well,
my office knows that we have a high priority for our veterans. And the customer service that we offer every constituent is important, but veterans will always have a special place in our office and our hearts as well, obviously. So we are very focused on their services, on their benefits, and how we can help them. We've returned over $350,000 we've helped return that amount of money to our veterans through money that was stuck in bureaucracy. When you talk about the bureaucracy and the red tape in the federal government, we know that it's not just in the Veteran Affairs Committee, it's everywhere. But when someone calls and says they're a veteran, it's a high priority for us to make sure that they get their passport renewed, that they get their whatever benefits that they have that are owed to them, that they're having trouble accessing that are owed to them. I always kind of half joke that when you're on the appropriations committee like we are, your calls get answered a little quicker when you call the federal government. So we'd like to use any position, leverage, and platform that we have within the administration, within our position here, to benefit our veterans. And when a veteran calls and we can make a call on their behalf to VA or to any other agency, we always do that. And like I said, through that effort in the first year, we were able to return $350,000 that had been owed to our veterans for years, and they hadn't been able to access it for whatever reason. But when our office got involved, and our staff went to work on this, we made it a priority. Some actually we saw results within the same week. Some took a little longer, but they finally got their check of their benefit activated. So I'm very proud of that. But I'm sure that we can put it on the screen here, the phone numbers or the websites that they can call and access, and we're right there to serve them. In
Thank
all
you.
offices, we have an office in Tucson, obviously, the office here in Washington, D.C., an office in Sierra Vista, and then we have mobile office hours. We actually go to the most remote parts of our district to make sure that our office is represented there as well. When we can't have a permanent physical presence, but we go visit these communities on a regular basis and bring our services to them.
Thank you, Congressman Ciscomani.
Absolutely. My
Juan,
pleasure. Yeah.
Pleasure to visit with you today.
I like
Thank
that,
you,
Juan.
sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye now.